Hey everybody, this is Cadroll Hunter, and we've got another lot of junk silver, or scrap silver as it's known here in Canada. Can't wait to get in and see if we got anything interesting. Stay tuned. Hey folks, this is James and you're watching my channel Cadroll Hunter. One of my favorite things to do is to pick up silver for melt value or cheaper. In this case, I bought a lot of silver coins. You can see there's $1 coins, 50-cent pieces, some quarters, there's dimes in here. I think it's mostly quarters and dimes. And I got all of this for 15 times face. So for this $1 coin here, I would have paid $15 for that. I don't actually remember how much is in here, what the face value matters, so we'll figure that out. But what I'm going to do is dump it all out. We'll do that right now. Get that awesome sound of silver. And you can see there's a lot of stuff. There's some pretty shiny things in here. There's some 1968s. Those will be 50% silver. And there's some pretty tarnished things here. There's a King George VI dime of some sort. But I'm going to get this all separated out by denomination, and we'll see if we got anything interesting. If not, well, we got silver, and silver is interesting if you ask me. So let's get in and see what I got. Okay, so I've been sifting through that pile, and I've separated out a few things. So we've got our 50-cent pieces. There were just 4 of them there, and I hadn't looked at any of this really. The only thing, I just bought everything they had, and there was 80%. And I've separated out one other thing. It's a stack of 50% 1968s. I did not pay 15 times face for these. I just paid 10 times face because they're 50% silver as opposed to 80% silver. So, but in the 50-cent pieces, you can see these are all pretty toned or tarnished. And we got a few different dates. This one here is a 1961, and it's pretty hard to make out the design. That's the coat of arms of Canada. And we've got the laureate portrait there, but that's 80% silver. We got a couple of 1964s, and all of these 50-cent pieces are looking the same. I'm assuming they all came from the same place and they were stored in the same conditions. And then we've got here a 1966, and this features the updated portrait of the Queen from the late 60s that went all the way into the 80s. And we just got the $1 coin. It was this 1964 Charlottetown, so it's going to be the laureate portrait. It's got some really odd kind of toning just on the bottom, like it was up against something that just sort of affected it, or something was protecting part of it maybe. There is a variety on the 64 we can look at. We'll throw it under the scope and I'll show you what we're looking for. So I'm zoomed in pretty close here, and we're looking at these initials TS, and there is a T.S. And so this is the regular one, but I think that this particular coin was subject to some dye deterioration. So there are versions of this coin, or varieties, where there's no dot. There's some where it's slightly visible, and then others where it's completely not there at all. And you can see that mostly on uncirculated brilliant coins where there's just no evidence of the dot. So that's the one, the variety people are looking for. But I'm just happy to include another 80% silver dollar into my collection. That's pretty chunky. That's a hefty bit of silver, so that's really cool. I've separated out all the quarters, and there wasn't anything particularly old in here. No King George VI, actually. The oldest one we got was a 1953, and there's a variety we can look for in the 53. There's a large date and a small date, and I can tell just by looking at this one, I believe this is the small date, and it's easy to find out if we want to compare it to the pictures that we get in our Charlton guide. So I'll throw this up on the screen and we'll compare it to the book so we can see what one this is. So there it is there. And when you've only got one, you can't compare against another one. It's really hard to know. Do I have the big date? The small date? What is it? But the Charlton guide has some illustrations you can use to have a look. So one thing we'll look at is the space between the date and the rim. There's a fair amount of space. And if I've got the Charlton guide right here, you can see that there's the large date reverse on the left and the small date reverse on the right. And the date on the one on the left is pretty close to the rim where there's a fair amount of space. And if we compare what we've got here, there's a fair amount of space there. So I'm pretty confident this is the small date, which is actually the less common of the two. It's not particularly valuable necessarily, but it is a cool one to find for sure. Now, of course, that's looking at the date itself, but there's actually another way we can check, a surefire way, because on the 53, there's a shoulder fold and a no shoulder fold. And This one here is the shoulder fold. It's got no real flared eye. The no shoulder fold has more of curved ends, more almost like a serif font. And the small date is only on the shoulder fold. So that's another diagnostic we can check. So we've got the shoulder fold, small date. So that's cool. And if you're curious, in this condition, this is a circulated example for sure, it is worth silver value. If this was an MS65, for instance, that's a $350 coin. Even in an MS60, it would be more like $13 or $14 as opposed to the about $5 in scrap value. Next up, we've got a pretty circulated 1955, and this is one of those rare Canadian coins that actually has a doubled die. Doubled dies are pretty common in US coinage, but not so common in Canadian, and I'm not sure what that's all about, if it's quality control or who knows, just maybe a different process. But in any case, this is pretty circulated. We'd have to scope it to see the date. We would see it clearly on the date. So this coin's pretty worn, but we can see pretty clearly, at least this 5 of the date, we would see that doubling to the right of this 5. We'd see it on this 5. We'd see it on the side of the 9. We can't really tell in this condition here, but even in this condition, we would see for sure the doubling on the 5. If we don't have it, that would have been a really, really cool find. I've never found one, don't have one, but that is something you can look for if you're picking up junk or scrap silver. So we'll look at the rest of these, but there's something interesting going on. So I've separated them out just a little bit. So we've got the 53 and the 55 we looked at. There's a 56, a 57, a 59, a 60, a 61, and a 63. And all of those are pretty circulated. And I think they came from a completely different person than the rest of these coins, because everything else is pretty uncirculated, even though the condition doesn't look great. Like, look at this one here. If I flip it over, you'll see that it's actually bright and shiny and it's got all the detail. It's just toned and tarnished from being stored and subject to the elements, which is really common with silver coins. That's why they invented things like silver polish, because silver will just do that when it's in contact with the air. So it oxidizes and gets tarnished, or toned as we like to call it now. So pretty much everything here, with the exception, I'd say, of these 1967. Some of these seem to be somewhat circulated. They're not all in the best of shape, but many of them are, and many of them are actually just toned or tarnished, but they're dull anyway. They might have just been stored somewhere differently. But otherwise, everything else looks pretty good. There's a whole stack of 1959s here, and these are all pretty shiny, lots of luster, where there isn't necessarily tarnish, but you can see they've obviously been subject to the elements. So we got 59s, there's a 62, a stack of 64s, and most of them are quite nice, but pretty tarnished, right? Like, just, you can see some of them are really good, just however they were stored. This one might have been stored with another coin just on top of it. One lone 63, 65, a bunch of 66s. These ones are all pretty tarnished. And then a whole stack of 1967s. The 67s here could be 50% silver or 80% silver. And unless you've got some instrument that can test it out, you're hard pressed to figure out what they really are, because they weigh the same. They have all the same specifications. Some people swear that they can hear the difference in a ping test or something, and I just can't. And dealers don't even bother trying to figure out whether it's 80 or 50. They just sell it as though it's all 65 and a half. So I think I probably just paid 10 times face for these ones as well, because you just can't tell. So I got a great deal on those. Anyway, let's get into the dimes. I can already see there's some older dimes in here because I see King George VI in there. So I'll set these quarters aside and sort out the dimes and see if we found anything cool there. Hey, we're just going to take a quick break in the action here to announce the winners of the Lighthouse Canada giveaway for my channel subscribers for the month of October. I'm really excited about this. We had 2 prize packages for winners. Each of these prize packages, it included a Lighthouse Vista Nature penny album, a nickel album, and a quarter album. This is over a $75 value. These are great. You know, I'm doing my penny hunt and album fill series using these very albums. They're fantastic. And so without further ado, our two winners chosen at random by Lighthouse Canada are Steve Shorlin and Brandon Pulio. Congratulations to both of you. Lighthouse Canada, who is the sponsor of this channel, put that draw together. So big thanks to Lighthouse. Lighthouse Canada will be in touch with both of you to arrange for you to get your prizes. I want to congratulate both of you and thank everybody for entering. Hopefully we'll be able to do something again like this soon. Anyway, let's get back to the hunt. But again, congratulations, Steve and Brandon. So here are all the dimes separated out. And the really, really cool thing is that we got something from every year. Unfortunately, the exceptions were our key date and semi-key date. We didn't get a 1948. That's a key date dime. We didn't get a 1954. It's a lower mintage semi-key date. And the only other one we didn't get, which isn't particularly scarce necessarily, is the 1937 first year King George VI. Otherwise, we got something in every other year. And you can see most of these are pretty circulated, in pretty rough shape, except for these last year 1968s, which looked nice and bright and shiny, just like our quarters did. But there's at least one variety we could probably find here. There are some re-engraved dates in the 38, 39, and 40. We're not going to be able to see that with the condition of these coins, but there is a variety in the 1956. There's one with a dot under the date, and we've got, I think, 4 of them here, so we can check and see if we might have gotten one of those. Here's one of our 56s under the scope, and right next to it, I've got the Coins in Canada website, which shows the dot. It's just between the 9 and the 5, right below the date. We don't have it on this one. We've got a few others to check, so let's have a look. So we'll move that one out of the way. We'll grab our next one, and we'll put it under. We'll take a look here. I don't see a dot on that guy. We'll go grab the next one. Nothing doing there. One more chance here. And I don't see it there either. But that's why you check, because you just never know. And in this kind of condition, people aren't looking very closely. They see a 56 and they throw it in the junk silver bin. But if we can find a variety that we don't already have in our collection, that's what's really cool. So altogether in that silver haul, we got $27.80 in face value, just $1 in the $1 coins. We got a couple dollars face in 50-cent pieces. We got $18 face in quarters, and we got $6.80 face in dimes, and we got a really great spread of dates. Of course, what I do after I do my junk silver purchases is that I tube these up. I don't separate them by dates. I separate them by purity. So all of my 80% go together. All the 50% go together. I separate out the 67s as well, because in dimes and in quarters, we don't know what they are. So I don't want to put them in the 80 or the 50. They just go in their own tubes. So that is that. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you liked seeing some older Canadian silver coins in this scrap silver / junk silver purchase. From time to time, we do videos like this. I just like to look at some older stuff that we're pretty hard pressed to find regularly coin roll hunting. It's hard enough to find silver. It's even harder to find old silver. And so this is pretty cool. And it adds silver to my stack. I'm primarily a collector, not necessarily a silver stacker, but I can appreciate the value of silver, and it's a little bit of a hedge against inflation, as people tend to always say, and inflation's running pretty rampant right now. So sometimes you want to put your money where it's going to hold its value, and some people say silver is better than paper. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. We'll see you again soon. The sponsors of today's video are Lighthouse Canada and the Charlton Press. Lighthouse Canada is the leading supplier of high-quality numismatic supplies in Canada, and the Charlton Press is the leading publisher of coin and paper money catalogs and price guides for Canadian collectors. Go check out their online stores today and use the exclusive discount code CRH20 for 20% off all your purchases.